Everything you see on the table right now, I'm giving away all of it. I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is another version of my games leaving the collection video. Every single month I do a video of the games that are leaving my collection, and this month we get a bonus episode. A bonus episode in which every single thing here I'm giving away. I'll have notes and details in the description down below. Make sure to check that out because that is the comprehensive notes and details. Everything I say here is kind of mostly stuff. We'll figure it out. I'm sure I'll leave things out. It'll all be in the description. But basically, everything that you see on the table, I'm giving away. From Sleeping Gods to that Gloomhaven expansion, that massive box, Crimson Scales, I'm giving that away. I just unboxed, so we'll talk about all this stuff. I'll have links to everything. Dogs of War, fantastic game. Final Girl Pledge over there. We have a Zombicide, the all-in from the original Kickstarter for the Zombicide Invader. We have a Kickstarter version of Lizard Wizard. We'll be going over every single thing here. There are a lot of games. A lot of expensive games, a Kickstarter deluxe version of Brass Lancashire. A lot of these things are being given away, and again, notes in the description down below, but basically the short version is the short version here. Check out the description. But the short version is, if you comment and subscribe, you'll be entered to win. Any comment at all, I'm not picking one thing or another, so you can do whatever you want. You could do a thumbs up, a smiley face, a deep introspective comment about how meaningful it would be to you personally if Sleeping Gods showed up on your doorstep. I apologize, but it's going to be worth the same weight as a smiley face or thumbs up, although it will mean more to me, I guess, not that I'm picking, the algorithm's going to pick. But any comment and subscribe will go ahead and earn you a chance to win any of these. International shipping will have to be covered by you, unfortunately. This would cost me an arm and a leg to ship internationally. I will potentially try to partially compensate, we'll see, I'll check. Domestic shipping will be covered by me, so we'll figure all that out. Again, notes down below. And then, and this is the kicker, if you are a Patreon, or if you donated to my recent GoFundMe, or if you could still donate to my recent GoFundMe, I'll have the details down below, but those will be eligible for extra pledges, extra entries automatically. So we'll figure out the details, but that's the basic. A comment and a subscribe earns you already, and then being a Patreon, either active or becoming a patron, any of those things, or giving to the GoFundMe will give you extra entries. This is a lot of money worth of games on the table. It would be remiss of me to not try to push a little bit towards Patreon and GoFundMe at the same time. But with that said, let's talk about what's going on here. And there will, of course, be timestamps to every single game here, although you may be done already. You've come, you've left your thumbs up, you're good to go, you're off to see the next video. I'm pretty sure you should subscribe to Shelf Clutter, by the way. He does giveaways every single week. Like, every single week. This video is not that special. I mean, it's very cool looking, but it's not that special. Shelf Clutter does this giveaways every single week on his channel, often of Kickstarter pledges, so make sure to check that out because, I mean, obviously you're here for the free games, and if you already left like 17 seconds ago, I'm sorry you missed that tip. It was really useful. Anyways, let's go ahead and dive into this. What's going on with these games? Why am I getting rid of them? Well, Crimson Scales is a different conversation. We'll talk about that at the end. But for the rest of these, they are games that I should be getting rid of anyway. There are games that I don't want to get rid of in one form or another, but I should be getting rid of. The nature of the games coming in, and the games I want to keep, and the games I love versus the games that I like means I continuously have to make hard choices around what stays and what goes. Most of the games on the table here, I am sad to see go because they're great games, and they're games that I have talked about lovingly in the past and will talk about lovingly in the future, but decisions have to be made, and things have to go, and I figured if I have to give away things that are this good, then they'll at least be in this video. Dedicated games leaving my collection video. So, let's start talking with them. Sleeping Gods is going to be the most recent one over here. Sleeping Gods is one of the ones that's slightly easier to give away. I did a review on this one, and I think it's one of the most impressive games that I ever played, but it's one that, while I think it's one of the most impressive game designs I've ever played, it's also a game that, to a certain extent, the sequencing, at least as a solo experience, which is how I experienced it, is a little bit mechanically light, but also mechanically essential. Meaning if you skip the mechanics of the game, you kind of walk away with a little bit less of an experience. And if you engage with the mechanics of the game, then at least for myself, I found it took away from the incredibly brilliant storytelling and sandbox aspect of the adventure. It's one that I'm happy to finish the current scenario I'm in, and then send it on. I'll finish it up by the time you're watching this video, or by the time I send it out to you, I'll be done with it already. But it's one in which I'm happy that I got a chance to play through it, and I really appreciated what Sleeping Gods did, and I am excited and am backing Sleeping Gods Distant Skies, because that already addresses some of my concerns with the mechanical aspects of the game. I don't know if it'll end up being a game I love or a game that, like Sleeping Gods Before It, I dive into once or twice and move on from. What I do know is I'm not worried about it because it will hold its value just fine, so I don't mind backing it either way. Although granted, if I turn around and do a giveaway with that, changes the conversation entirely. But that's Sleeping Gods, one of the easier ones on the table. There are a few on the table that are easier than others. There are a few that are harder than others. Moving on to another easier than others one, we have Final Girl. The all-in pledge for Final Girl over there. I think it's the all-in pledge. I have to double check if it's everything. But Final Girl is an incredible solo experience in the story it tells. But it has a degree of cascading failure that I do not love in the game. It means that when I've played Final Girls, I've alternated between having some incredible games that I really, really loved and having some really not fun experiences where I felt the choice was either to just cheat, and I'm playing it solo, who's going to know anyway, or to not enjoy my game. And I don't love it when a game forces me into that game state, into that choice. I think Final Girl tells incredible stories, and I think if you're only interested in the story, then there's also a story to be had in the abject failure of losing on your first turn or two because of the way things pop up and develop. Final Girl is a horror simulation, a simulation in which you are the Final Girl. You are trying to help everyone else survive and escape from the killer, and you have a variety of gameplays, of maps, of killers, of locations, of girls, all these different things that you can engage with to mix up the experience, and I think it does an incredible job at the emergent storytelling it provides. But again, the cascading failure means you could end up, the cascading failure and the degree of luck means you can end up in situations that are just too hard to escape from. Situations that things don't work out, you roll a little poorly, and that means next turn is going to be even harder, and the next turn is going to be even harder, until before you know it, the experience you're having today in this game aren't as fun. So it's a mix. It's both incredible and not as much, and so I've enjoyed playing it, but I'm ready to move on from it. From there, let's go into Zombicide Invader. I'm trying to slowly work my way in from the least hard to the hardest, although I have so many things on the table here, it's hard to know for sure. Zombicide Invader. Zombicide Invader is an easier one to give up. Not because I don't like it, but because I like other games more. I like Zombicide Black Plague more. I like Zombicide Green Horde more. I have Massive Darkness 2 coming at some point, some way, and so that will be in a similar vein, a similar spot, although I don't know if I like it more because I haven't played it. And I have Marvel Zombies coming, and I definitely like that one more. And I have Zombicide Undead or Alive coming, and I like that one more. Zombicide Invader is a great game that the only mistake it made is being not as good as some of its other brethren in the space, or at least not as good to me. And so while I love Zombicide Invader and have had a great time with it, I prefer other games in the Zombicide space. Games that came before it, and games that came after it. I think Zombicide Invader is a lot of fun. If you're particularly attracted to the space theme, then it's a great Zombicide, and a lot of people do love it. For me, Black Plague has been the gold standard, and the only thing that currently challenges that is Marvel Zombies, and it seems a little bit excessive to have 4 giant Kickstarter versions of Zombicide on my game shelf. 3 is totally reasonable, of course, but 4 seems like a bit too much. And so Zombicide Invader doesn't go because I don't like it, it goes because I like other things that do it similarly. On a similar note, Brass Lancashire, a game that I loved, a game that's in my top 100, a game that's been in my top 100, a game that still is in my top 100, arguably. The only reason I'm getting rid of Brass Lancashire is because I finally had a chance to table Birmingham. And Birmingham does Brass better than Lancashire does. I think that they're very close. I went back and forth between the two for a bit, trying to get a few plays in of each, trying to figure out which one I like more. I've been playing Lancashire for years. Birmingham is new to me this year. Ultimately, after several plays, I think Brass Birmingham is the one that does it better. It's the one that has a few small elements of tweaks to the gameplay that make it an experience that I prefer to dive into. But Lancashire is still amazing. It's just practically speaking, the two are so similar in what they're doing. Again, it's Zombicide versus Zombicide. The two are so similar in what they're doing that there's too much overlap to keep a game like this. When I'm only playing it 2, 3, maybe 4 times a year, I don't need the variety of another game that's basically the same thing with a tiny amount of variation to it. And so I'm freeing up a quarter of a Calyx Cubby. Not nearly as impressive as getting rid of Zombicide, which frees up an entire Calyx Cubby. But I'm freeing up a quarter of a Calyx Cubby to put another game into that spot. It's an incredible game. It's a game that's been around for a while. I like Birmingham a bit better, though. From there, we start getting into the harder territory. All of these have had some degree of reason why they're gone. I think we'll go with Trickshot next. Trickshot is a hockey 2-player head-to-head game, a 2-player game of push your luck, and one that does a really good job at balancing almost a degree of area control combined with push your luck, combined with a sports theme that works really, really well. My only real problem with it is I just, practically speaking, don't pull it off the shelf. I like the game a lot, and when I table it, I'm like, oh, it's so good. It's so tactical at what it's doing. I really appreciate the puzzle that Trickshot brings to your table, and I really appreciate the push your luck elements and the way it has a sports theme on it that just feels like good tactical strategy. It feels like a skirmish game that happens to have a puck instead of a sword, a bow, a shield, and all that. It's incredible at what it's doing, and it's a great job from Wolf Designer, same people who did Guards of Atlantis that I love even more. The only problem with Trickshot is it's in its best form, you're playing it as a 2-player game that's going to be an hour plus. You can play one match at a time, one period at a time, you could, but it's not the same experience. I think that Trickshot thrives when you're playing it in the full-length mode. The balance of it is that when you do it in the full-length mode, you do wind up in a situation in which it's a longer 2-player game that I don't, practically speaking, play as often. I find that longer games that are 2-player specific are usually different genres, different styles, either more cooperative or things like Rum and Bones. Rum and Bones would be a game that this is competing with Rum and Bones in my collection. In the time frame that I'll take to play it, in the space that I'll play it, and the people I'll play it with, I can play Rum and Bones or I can play Trickshot. And I love Rum and Bones more than I love Trickshot, which is the only real flaw Trickshot has. I love Trickshot. I think it's a great game. But when I'm picking other games, Antique Duellum, Rum and Bones, Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion, Gloomhaven Regular, any of these games, there's a degree of why I would pick the other game instead of this game. And so Trickshot loses just by that kind of exclusionary aspect. It feels bad because I really enjoy it, but that's true of many of these. Again, this is a harder video than normal in the nature of what's going away. From there, let's move to Dogs of War. Dogs of War. Come On has 2 games on the table today, apparently. I do love Cool Mini or not, but I can't own all their games. I can try, but eventually games have to go, and Dogs of War is one that's sad to see go. Dogs of War at one point was in my top 100 games. The problem with Dogs of War is that I found that, like Final Girl, it has the problem, in a very different way, but like Final Girl, it has the problem of inconsistently good plays. When Dogs of War is on fire, it's on fire, and it does such a great job. When Dogs of War does not work, when the nature of the kind of mercenary approach in which you are not actually a side, but you're temporarily aligning with one side or another to further your own goals, and so you happen to be working with other players or against other players at any given time, I find Dogs of War can create amazing, incredible gameplays, and gameplays that I just didn't have a good time. More so the former than the latter, to be fair. But when a game has a few bad plays under its belt, it starts to move into a territory in which I am less in a rush to pull it off the table, off the shelf. And I'm less in a rush to pull it off the shelf, knowing that I might be signing up for 75-80% of a good time, or 20% chance that I have an okay play at best. And Dogs of War has shifted into that territory for me. It's great. It's incredible. The gameplay is so well done. The designer did Blitzkrieg. Blitzkrieg has a similar element, very different, captures a lot of the things Dogs of War does well, but doesn't capture the nature of multiple players choosing sides as you go forward towards, you betray each other, you play cards, you do all the things. Dogs of War is excellent. And it's inconsistently good. I don't have all the Kickstarter extras in this one. I have like a whole bunch of the extra expansion packs and characters you can have. I don't have the miniatures. Those are too hard to track down. But I do have a lot of the stuff for Dogs of War, but it's one that just has shifted from one of my favorite 5-player games to I'd rather play El Grande. Or I'd rather play, I don't know, I have to look at my shelf, but I'd rather play El Grande, other games that hit the 5-player mark that do so well. Dogs of War has gone down for me over time. Next up we have Maglev Metro. Maglev Metro is a recent addition to my collection, and one that's leaving. It was like in the towards the higher end of my top 100 last year. Higher end specifically because of this aspect. You never really know, just because you enjoy something doesn't mean that if it's new to you, there's always a degree of hesitancy of, sure, I like you more than this, but also this has been here for 2 years, 3 years, and you've been here for a few months, so we're going to hold off for a bit. And Maglev Metro had that. My first few plays of Maglev Metro were excellent, and my continued plays, I would say if you want to check on my full opinion on it, you can check out the review. The review I did after much more plays than after my top 100, and so the review is more of an accurate impression of where I ended up with Maglev Metro, which is that it's a great game. It's a solid pick up and deliver, and it does pick up and deliver in a way that builds your tableau, and it does so in a way that I really enjoy because I don't like pick up and deliver, but I do like building your tableau, and the combination of the two resulted in a game that I was happy to dive into, happy to try the various maps. There's only 2 in the base game. There's more on Kickstarter coming soon at some point. But Maglev Metro is really good at the tableau building. It's really good at the building out your networks and trying to figure out the pathways you're going to choose this game and this map based on these criteria, based on how these passengers came out, based on how the stations were put on the board. There's a lot of variance to the way you'll experience the game, variance that will be tripled and quadrupled as you gather more map packs for the game. But it's one that over multiple plays, I went from loving the game to cooling on it. Still thinking it's a great game. Again, the very nature of anything in this video is something that sad to see go in some way or another. Well, that's true of games leaving my collection, true, but this one more so. Maglev Metro is excellent. I just find that games that fall into this time frame, you know, an hour and a half, 2 hours, plays best with 3 and 4 players. At that point, you're going to be competing with Gollum, with Coimbra, with Lorenzo Magnifico, with Foonshade Magnet, with Anno 1800, with Brass, the other Brass apparently. There are so many other games in this space that are 4.5s for me, that keeping a 4 in that time frame, spot, genre is just not going to cut it for right now. And so Maglev Metro does have to go as well. Merv. Merv's going to be a similar conversation. Merv is from Osprey Games, and it's a really good game. A really good game with multiple tracks that you're trying to go up on. And in a way, Merv very much reminds me of Gollum. In the way that, and Gollum's a recent addition to my collection that I'm really loving. But Merv was a step back from Gollum. As you build the city walls, as you try to defend your city from rampaging Huns or something, I don't know exactly who's rampaging the city at this point. You're building out the city. You're managing the various tracks in the game, trying to be mindful of the marketplaces, of moving up in the palace, of these different tracks as you figure out how to optimize your score across 12 actions. The entire game is 12 actions, similar to the way Gollum has 12 actions. And those 12 actions, you have to figure out the pathway you're pursuing heavily versus the pathways you're pursuing more arbitrarily. I don't know what it is about Gollum versus Merv that I prefer Gollum more. Merv is a 4 to 5 for me, Gollum's a 4.5, and Gollum is, by the nature of being a 4.5, has moved into the category of those Euros that I love and I can't wait to table again, and Merv is the category that I really like and will consistently lose out to the ones that I love. It stuck around for a while because it's a really good game. I really like Merv. It's a solid Euro if you like the genre of Euros, and if you play these more than I do. For me, it's a subset of all the games I play. I like diving into the Zombicides, into the Terraforming Mars, into solo games, into Euro games, into party games. I like diving into all categories and genres, but that does mean that within each genre, I'm a little bit more selective about which ones stick around and which ones go. In the case of Merv, I'm sad to see it go. It really does have a lot of similarity with Gollum. A lot of similarity. But ultimately, I prefer Gollum, so... even those similarities won't protect it, unfortunately. If anything, they further certify that I'm making the right decision to let this one go. That covers all of these games, covers all of those games, which means we have 2 left over here, and plus, of course, Crimson Scales. We have Lizard Wizard. No, let's do In the Hall of Mountain King first. In the Hall of Mountain King. This is a hard one for me. I've been on the fence about In the Hall of Mountain King for a few months now. I've been on the fence as to whether it's a game that should stay or go, because I consistently enjoy myself when I play In the Hall of Mountain King. From Burnt Island Games, the production quality is incredible. The gameplay has polyominoes, and it has a cascading trolls moot of just resources that's cascading downwards that are immensely fun to build up your tableau of trolls and just start chaining towards more and more resources as you build out your tunnels, as you build towards the center of the caverns, and as you try to get those statues on the right place to score as many points as possible. The problem is my favorite part of In the Hall of Mountain King are the cascading troll resources, and that's just one aspect of the game. The main cavern area and the polyomino game you're playing there, while I enjoy, I like other polyomino games more, and so I find In the Hall of Mountain King is a game that I consistently enjoy, but infrequently pull out as my preferred game to play. I probably should have gotten rid of it a year ago. I haven't because I really don't want to. But I have to let things go that aren't the best of the best. I have to let things go that aren't dragging me kicking and screaming to play them. I like In the Hall of Mountain King. I recommend it. It's a great game. And at the same time, I'd rather play other games over it. Then second lastly, because Crimson Scales. Second lastly, we have Lizard Wizard. Lizard Wizard is another tough one, although a little bit more complicated, because the core gameplay of Lizard Wizard, and I might have to hold on to Raccoon Tycoon to do a full play this, not that first. So if you win Lizard Wizard, there might be a small delay on it because I might try to prioritize that. But Lizard Wizard is the re-implementation of Raccoon Tycoon. It's a gamified version of it, adding a few different elements to it. I haven't played Raccoon Tycoon. I have only played Lizard Wizard, so I can only comment on Lizard Wizard. I can tell you that I love what Lizard Wizard is doing. And when I reviewed it back during the Kickstarter, when they had the Kickstarter copy, preview, whatever, review, whatever you want to call it, my main hesitation at the time was the game length. That I felt the game ran a bit too long. And having gotten this copy and dived into this copy, I think that it takes a bit too long. I think the gameplay of Lizard Wizard feels reminiscent of a 90-minute long experience. I really enjoy it for what it's doing. I think the auctions, the set collection, the spells, all those things are fun. The way they work together are thoroughly enjoyable. I also feel it drags out much longer than it should be. A 90-minute game feels like it should be, the game that should feel like it should be 90 minutes feels like it's 2.5 hours on the low end. It doesn't feel like it should be a 2.5 hour long game. Now, obviously, that depends on player count, who's playing, the situation, all that, but Lizard Wizard is a game that has never gone fast enough for me. It's a game that I keep thinking the next play will be faster, the next play will be faster, but it isn't. The next play is just as slow as the last. There's a lot of fun things going. There's a little bit of an economy track of the various resources. You're gathering these spells, you're casting these spells, you're gathering towers, you're creating sets of wizards and towers, you're going deep diving into the dungeon. It does a lot of things well, and I really enjoy what it's doing. But it takes too long. And so I don't find myself looking at this, because if I'm looking at this, then I may as well sit down and play Golem. I'd rather play that. Golem's coming up a lot in this video. It's not intentional. It's just a recent review I did, so I'll have it on the mind. I'd rather sit down and play Caverna. Caverna plays faster than Lizard Wizard and is more rewarding. That's a problem. The strike against Lizard Wizard is the game length is not balanced around what the game is. I could try to house rule for it, but I find myself just not in a rush to do so. I really like Lizard Wizard. I think I'd give it a 3.5 out of 5. Like, I want to give it a 4, I do, but the game length just takes it down a notch for me. It really does. So a 3.5 out of 5. Here's my official review of Lizard Wizard, in case you ever get around to watching the play that's not that or whatnot. Really like it, but I think it's one that, as much as I like it, is not going to work out for me for right now. And then lastly we have Crimson Scales. Crimson Scales is the only one here that I am absolutely, to be very 100% clear, am getting this one back. Here's the story with Crimson Scales. And partially, by the way, you have Crimson Scales. If you win any of these games, you partially have Crimson Scales to thank for it. Now, Crimson Scales, if you missed this is a fan-made Gloomhaven expansion. I know it doesn't look like a fan-made expansion because it's a full production quality everything. This is a not-for-profit Gloomhaven expansion that came out. I did a full unboxing with more information. You can check that out, and I will link to the site down below as well. I'll link to the site. They did this, and they're also doing their own unique game, their own unique IP as well. That'll be coming up as well. So, if you don't win this expansion, you can still get your hands in it because they do plan on doing a second print run of it, so this is not your only opportunity to get your hands in it. The reason I want to do this video is because I unboxed this game, and then I realized that I am probably not going to table Crimson Scales for at least a few months. I want to finish Jaws of the Lion with my friend, and I think when we're done with that, maybe we'll set up some new characters and dive directly into Crimson Scales instead of directly into Gloomhaven. I have to check if I can even do that, but that's our game plan. And with me realizing that I wasn't going to be playing this copy, and this copy, for context, is an early airship copy. The copies that are going out to other people who back the game, who pre-ordered the game, they're getting their copies soon. And so to that end, I'm like sitting here thinking that I have a copy of a heavily sought after game, and I have it earlier than a lot of people do, and I'm not even playing it, which, like, if I get something early and I'm playing it, okay, it is what it is. That's the perks of being a content creator, sure. But if I get it early and I'm not even playing it, that just feels bad. That feels like I'm not taking advantage of an opportunity. And so I figured, you know what, I'll go ahead, I'll run a giveaway, I'll promote the channel, promote Patreon, GoFundMe, all that stuff, and I'll give away Crimson Scales, and I will pick up another copy. I'll be buying another copy, because I'll have to go through the normal route to get the other copy, but at least I'll go ahead and buy another copy, because I feel like someone should be playing this. So if you want, this is the first one I'm going to ship out, by the way. The very first winner of this, and again, details on all the stuff, on all the timelines, all the details of what you have to do, the various ways to enter extra entries, how it works for Patreon and GoFundMe, all those different things will be down in the description down below. But this is the one I'm going to try to ship out as aggressively, as fast as possible, because half the reason I want to give it away is if someone has it early, someone should be enjoying it. And so we'll see what happens with that. I will have gameplay at some point. I will have gameplay of Crimson Scales at some point in some way on the channel, but not this copy, not right now. But yeah, I will be picking it up again because it's way too cool not to. You should check out my unboxing if you haven't already. This game looks way too cool not to actually dive into further. In any case, that is it. Once again, links, description, all details, things down below. Giving away these 10, 12 games, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different games. 10 games leaving my collection, and one that I am definitely getting back. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to comment and subscribe down below for a free entry, and then past that, other options as well for Patreon and GoFundMe. And until next time, have a good one.